And Donald Trump is, to the surprise of no one, involving himself in the race for Senate leadership. Yesterday, in a Truth Social post, Trump demanded that the next majority leader agree to recess appointments. That would allow the president to appoint people to senior administration positions without the Senate's confirmation. Trump did not endorse any candidate for that Senate post, but the three lawmakers who are vying for the position all appear to agree with the idea. Senator Rick Scott of Florida wrote on X, "I will do whatever it takes to get your nominations through as quickly as possible." Senator John Thune of South Dakota responded with, quote, "All options are on the table." And Senator John Cornyn of Texas noted that the Constitution does allow the president to make recess appointments. Meanwhile, several Republicans are now throwing their support behind Senator Scott. He's secured endorsements from Senators Rand Paul and Tommy Tuberville, as well as Bill Hagerty, who's seen as a top contender for a post in Trump's incoming State Department. Elon Musk, who certainly has Trump's ear these days, also announced his support for Scott and called Thune a, quote, top choice for Democrats. The upper chamber is scheduled to elect a new leader on Wednesday. Joining us now, MSNBC political analyst Brendan Buck, who knows a thing or two about congressional leadership. He was communications strategist and former aide to House Speakers Ryan and Boehner. Brendan, great to see you as always. So let's start with your thoughts on Trump's request. He's clearly already starting to govern from social media. Talk to us why he would want recess appointments.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, whether or not that's even a practical thing to do. The House and Senate, or excuse me, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate have worked together for many years to block this very thing. They come in session regularly just so that presidents can't use this recess appointment power. And the reason is that it is the Senate's prerogative to vet and confirm nominees. That is one of their key constitutional responsibilities. And what is so interesting here is you have Republicans tripping over themselves to take away their own authority, their own power. That obviously speaks to the grip that Donald Trump is going to have over Senate Republicans. Now, the House has always been, do whatever Donald Trump says. The Senate has been a little more different. Clearly, we're in a new era where they are willing to take extraordinary measures to have him advance his agenda. Now, I don't think that you're going to need recess appointments for Donald Trump's cabinet selections. I think they're going to get confirmed relatively easily and probably relatively quickly, almost no matter who he chooses. This is more about, there are almost 1,200 positions in the government that require Senate confirmation. You're talking here about your deputy undersecretaries throughout the government who are doing the more operational things. These are the people you probably never heard of, but are going to be doing the day-to-day running of Donald Trump's government. And Donald Trump would like to get them in place as quickly as possible. And if he can do a recess appointment, he could do all of these at once and have his people in there calling shots on his behalf in a way that would, allow them to get moving much more quickly than you normally would.
Yeah, and to stock an administration full of loyalists who will simply do his bidding, whatever that might be. Brendan, give us your quick sense. Handicap the race for us. Certainly a lot of momentum right now for Senator Scott.
Yeah, Rick Scott was clearly running as a protest candidate, I would say, before this election. John Thune and John Cornyn are sort of establishment. They've both been in leadership. And Rick Scott was running as a protest candidate to say, we want some changes in how the rules are going to go. If you want our votes, you're going to have to listen to us. But after what happened in the election, I think if you're a Senate Republican, the protest candidate looks pretty good, somebody who's against the establishment. And so you're going to see some momentum there. Now, I still don't think that Rick Scott is the favorite. I think Rick Scott is going to get a decent showing. He may end up making his way to the second ballot. It's notable that Elon Musk was going after John Thune, who I think people think actually is the real favorite here. But Rick Scott has positioned himself as somebody who is there to represent the interests of Donald Trump. But I still think most senators want a leader who is there to represent their particular interests.
And Brendan, in our last 45 seconds, another place where Trump's going to be able to make a huge impact, the courts, potentially even the highest court in the land. Give us your sense as to what might be coming.
Yeah, obviously Mitch McConnell has made that the priority of Senate Republicans, but both parties have recently. I mean, it is when there is inaction legislatively, the calendar just gets filled up with these court nominations. Donald Trump is going to be the same. They made enormous impact his first 4 years. I think the next 4 are going to completely reshape the judiciary in a conservative direction, and there's very little that Democrats can do about it because the rules have been changed. They just need a simple majority, and for decades, you're going to have a lot of conservative judges on the bench.
And, of course, Trump already has had 3 Supreme Court appointments, likely to have more. I know there's been some rumors about Justice Sotomayor, whether she would step down or not, but her team says that's not going to be the case. We shall see in the years ahead. MSNBC political analyst Brendan Buck. Brendan, thank you as always. We'll talk to you again real soon.